So I got this comment on my last video about the morality of the Marines through the lens of Fujitora and Kobe. And it's such an honest and media literate perspective on Garp. And I'm also genuinely glad that some people are picking up what I'm putting down. Garp is not purely evil, but he's also not a good guy, right? So I made this video to shout you out and yeah, got it. Also spoilers, I'm only gonna be talking about Marineford. So here's what he said. I don't even know what to think of Garp anymore. Back in the day, calling him a good guy was a no-brainer. The hero of the Marines, the man who stood for justice. But as One Piece keeps unfolding, that image keeps breaking apart. First he let Ace die, and I tried to rationalize it, telling myself he was torn between his duty as a Marine and his love as a grandfather. Then we found out about God Valley, and I celebrated him as a hero again. But after seeing what really went down in Rock's flashback, it's hard to look at him the same way. Every time I try to defend him, he does something that makes it harder to believe in the version of Garp I grew up respecting. It's like Oda's telling us to let go of that idealized hero of the Marines image. Because the truth is, Garp is a self-made puppet for the world government. He's strong enough to reject, but chooses to be blind to the horrors and evil of his superiors. I think this is a very sincere and educated view on Garp, and to me, it's what Oda intended for his character. Garp is a cautionary tale, that sometimes good and even powerful men can still stand by and rationalize a tragedy. We are initially introduced to Garp as a kind and charismatic family member. Even if he happens to land on the opposite side of the Pirates versus Marines dichotomy, we can still tell that he's not a bad person individually. And those traits don't change. But we do. What happens is we learn more and more over time about the world of One Piece, that Garp's position in it naturally grows more and more indefensible. We as an audience become more knowledgeable about the true nature of the Marines and the world government as we see how they influence and rule the people of this world. We start to question, if we were in Garp's shoes, would we make the same decision that he did? And then Marineford happens, the Summit War. We as an audience know that Ace is a good person, and we know that Garp knows that too. But this is the first time we are actually forced to contend with where Garp has positioned himself in the greater ideological landscape. This character, who at this point feels like a family member himself, would be one of the largest barriers towards saving another family member from the crushing weight of the world government. It's very direct imagery that Garp is our last hurdle to saving Ace from the execution scaffold, that he places himself as a physical barrier between Ace and Luffy. But there's still a light on the horizon. Garp cannot bring himself to hurt his own grandson as he pursues the freedom of his other son. It's just too much for him to bear. The kind man that we knew shines through the pure white cape that imposes its version of justice on the world. And Garp lets Luffy take him down and free Ace for the moment. Garp will not help the white beard pirates, but he cannot bring himself to directly murder his own son. Garp is, in more ways than one, trapped by his humanity, pulled apart between his morals and dogma. This is made even clearer in this arc by the example set by Whitebeard himself, a legendary pirate, a Yonko, the ultimate evil in Garp's own worldview, and his leading tenet is family. That everyone is born into this world free of sin, that you cannot punish a child for the crimes of their father, and that when all is said and done, Edward Newgate will go to hell and back, will fight and die to save Ace. Ostensibly one of the most vile men on the planet according to Garp's worldview, is making the decision that we, the audience, are begging Garp to. Now spoilers for God Valley. This has been a central theme of Garp's character since Marineford, but there was still this idea that, hey, maybe Garp genuinely believes that the Marines and the world government do more good than bad, that pirates are still ultimately the most harmful thing out there, and we've just found out that this is not the case, that Garp knows about everything, all the way up to Emu himself. Garp is actually one of maybe 20 people on the planet that even knows that Emu exists, and not only did he choose to clock back in the next day, but he does not tell any of the Marines that he trusted, like Suru and Sengoku. He didn't tell Sword, who have no incentive to actually fight the government as a legitimate mission statement. Kaido working with Cypherpole gets you a boxing match from hell with X-Drake. Literal demons running the government would definitely motivate this group to take action before this. He didn't even tell Dragon and the Revolutionary Army, who are already at the top of the world government's hit list. So this was just Garp either forgetting or deliberately keeping this information from the Revs. Garp's goal to protect the Marines is in his eyes an honorable one, and it's definitely well intentioned. But in reality, he's allowed the world government to amass more and more power, while using his name and reputation to recruit more bodies to their cause. He's allowed 12 more human hunts to take place after literally experiencing one himself. Garp did not know that God Valley was what it was, right? But somehow he was aware of the Celestial Dragon's field trip. We don't know how he was leaked this information, but he was leaked this information, which means every time the Celestial Dragons go on a field trip every 3 years, Garp has to be wondering, are they doing it again? And Garp doesn't have the power to stop this, right? I'm not saying he's evil or orchestrating it. Well, to be honest, he is so strong that he probably could go and save thousands of people, but regardless, the larger point is about who you are as a person. Dragon is a person who could not bear the weight of being a Marine and knowing they were setting these up. Despite being far weaker than Garp at the time, he had to fight back. He needed to fight back. But Garp is a person who can compartmentalize it, to put his nose to the grindstone and just focus on the good Marines. Garp is not an evil person, but his inaction has undeniably contributed to more death and destruction. The point I'm trying to make, and the point Oda is making in God Valley, and the point Hannah Arendt was making in the 1960s is one and the same. The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil. Garp is not the villain of this story, but he is damn sure not the hero either.